All right, now we're doing the YouTube thing. This is going to come out in a few days after recording, after the live. But this is Brian, and I'm here with Vince. This is Metal Swap Talk, and we're here with Norm again from Psychotic Waltz.
What's up?
Yeah, thanks again for hanging.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Norm, I got kind of a light intro for you.
Okay.
Let me tell you a little bit about Norm, and he can tell you more. Norm Leggio is an original member and drummer of progressive metal band Psychotic Waltz. He played in numerous metal bands in San Diego. He worked at and owned the legendary metal store Blue Meannie Records, and he co-hosted the metal radio show on Rock 105.3 in San Diego called Another State of Mind. Psychotic Waltz are releasing their first album in 23 years, titled The God-Shaped Void on Inside Out Music, coming out February 14th, 2020. Thanks so much for hanging out with us, Norm.
Oh, thank you.
Norm, can you give us a kind of brief history of Psychotic Waltz, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I mean, the band started in 1986. We were called Aslan. And, we started out like most bands, playing covers of our favorite bands and started writing original music. And by 88, we did a first demo, self-titled, and that, got traded and sold and passed around the old school way before the internet through the mail. And, we ended up, distributing about 2,000 of those, back in the day. And then what happened was there was another band called Aslan that had a hit song. And even though it was great press for us, we were completely heartbroken. Kerrang! Magazine, in the back of their magazine, always had like a joke section called The View from the Bar. And so they show this Aslan that has the hit song, and then they show us. And at this point of time, we were looking very 80s rock and metal. Some of us had big hair, especially me and Brian McAlpin. And the caption said, "Is it true that One Hit Wonders Aslan used to be horrible heavy metal and cut their curly beautiful locks to be boring, AOR music or something like that?" It was something really sarcastic that was like, we all laughed, but at the same time we're like, this is not how we wanted to get into Kerrang! Because we did mail one of our demos into Kerrang! Like we mailed our Aslan demo tape to every magazine and fanzine or, anyone and
the Predator.
Yeah, everything. just to get people into the band. And so we were really bummed about it. And then we eventually ended up changing the name to Psychotic Waltz. Because we had a song called Sometimes that we changed the name to Psychotic Waltz, but a friend of Devon's named Steve Daniels came to one of our practices and he heard some other song, and I can't remember what song it was, but he was the one who said, "Wow, that sounds like a Psychotic Waltz." And then later we named the song called Sometimes a Psychotic Waltz. And then Brian, one practice, said, "Hey, we should just call ourselves Psychotic Waltz." And it was more like a joke. We were all like laughing, "That's stupid." And went on a tangent like we usually do and making jokes. And then all of a sudden the room got real quiet and we're like, "Hey." And we became Psychotic Waltz. And then, we went on to release 4 albums. And then, after our last album, Bleeding, which was like 95, 96, we disbanded for about 15 years. And then about 10 years ago, we got back together, started doing shows, and we've been doing shows off and on for like the last 10 years, basically going out and playing overseas in Europe every 2 years, and at a snail's pace. In the meantime, in between those tours and shows we've been doing and festival appearances, we've been writing a record. you heard tonight, the song Devils and Angels, is coming off our album called A God-Shaped Void, coming out in Inside Out Music on February 14th, and that's the first album we've done in 23 years, and that's where we are right now.
Are any of those songs that old, or is it all newer kind of songs, or both, a mixture?
Well, you know, when we originally had the idea of getting back together, the first idea was to work on new music. So some of the riffs that you heard on that song, Devils and Angels, you know, the first two riffs were around like 10 years ago, and the song was very different. Once, you know, Dan and Devon and all of us got into the room together and worked it out. I mean, we've done like 9 years of pre-production, so we've re-recorded the songs a million times. And you know, Devon living over in Austria, you know, we would work something up, email it to him, he'd email it back, ask us to change some stuff.
Yeah.
Sometimes it would happen, we'd already be on to the next song, so we'd have to go back, relearn a song that we built up, recorded, and played only once, like 3 months ago, and relearn it, and then implement the changes, and then have to go back and try to remember what we were working on. So it took a lot of time, and you know, we're very happy with the results.
You've been in a prog band, Psychotic Waltz, then in a math metal band, Teabag, hardcore metal band, Broken Foundation,
Yes.
power metal band, Cage, thrash metal band, Nukem, and now back inside Psychotic Waltz. When are you going to join a black or death metal band?
If I could play fast enough, I would, because I love black metal. You know, when we went to Europe in the early days, and all this black metal was coming out, I fell for it all. I loved Borknagar especially. I was a huge Wintersorgs fan. His voice is incredible. Emperor, of course. And yes, I was just obsessed with Cradle of Filth. And actually, Cradle of Filth, you know, made me a lot of money at the record store, because we were the only store where you could get
the first few albums.
The first few albums, and the T-shirts, and some of the T-shirts were very, very, very graphic. You know, it was of, you know, scantily clad women dressed as nuns with their, you know, everything showing, and
titties.
And yeah, yeah, and you know, those sold like hotcakes, and I was really into that whole stuff. You know, but yeah, I you know, I think I would look kind of cool in corpse paint. I mean, I'm a huge Kiss fan and King Diamond fan, and I always, as a kid, always wanted to be in a band that wore makeup. So, you know,
Kind of a follow up on that. With all those different metal styles, do you enjoy the variety?
Yeah, I do, and they all have their challenges. I'd have to say the stuff that I did in Teabag and Broken Foundation was the most, especially Broken Foundation, was the most challenging and technical music I ever did. lot to Steve Cox for making me a better drummer, because he would program these really intricate parts and I would have to mimic the programming, and then I would come up with some of my own parts. And a lot of that stuff I had to practice it like 5 to 7 hours a day, because in order to play it, because it was really fast and it was really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
So even as an experienced drummer, you still have to sometimes play 4 hours of practice and get. How do you rehearse?
Well, things are a little different now. I still play drums. I try to play drums every day, but I don't, have all the time in the world anymore. I'm in a different phase of my life. I have a 7-year-old daughter, so she's asking, Daddy, come play with me. I'm gonna choose her, to go play with. But I try to do a little bit every day. But yes, I really feel that if you want to play, especially play metal drumming, it's a very physical thing. I think I know for myself, not only do I have to practice the songs all the time, but I have to spend a portion of time working on my technique, which I really haven't done that much of as of late. But back in the day, it was like a military regiment. I would go to the gym in the morning, work out for a couple hours, go spend a couple hours a day just working strictly on my hand and foot technique, and then run through the songs by myself, then go to band practice and play the songs. And I did that for years. I there was a part of my life where I played 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
And if you are a young man who wants to be a good drummer, spend all your free time playing drums, because there's always somebody practicing twice as hard as you. So
Yeah, I can attest to how much Norm practiced, having worked with him.
Yeah, I love to play drums, and that's what it comes down to. I started when I was 10, and I'm in my 50s, and I still love to play. That's what it feels great to be able to do this. So
yeah. The last Psychotic Waltz album came out 23 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys reformed about 10 years ago. Do you think, working on these songs for 10 years is going to pay off on this new album?
I hope so. You can't make everybody happy, but so far, people that have been privy to hearing the whole album that are reviewing it are very excited about it. And there's been some great comments. People have been saying that we recaptured the old magic. There was always 2 camps. Everyone would either say Social Grace or they would say Everflow.
Mm-hmm.
And Bleeding and Mosquito were good albums, and I'm very proud of those. But we always have been told by all our fans, and there are fans who like Bleeding more. That was their introduction to the band, or Mosquito. But the majority have always talked about those 2 albums, and people that have heard the new record, have been comparing it to the first 2. I think there's a little bit of everything from our existence. There are songs on there that I listen to, I go, okay, that could be like a song on Everflow without us rehashing or ripping ourselves off. I go, okay, that sounds like something that could be on Mosquito. Okay, that's definitely Social Grace. And there's a song in particular, without giving out the song titles yet, there's a song in particular that reminds me of the Aslan era, where we're going way back. So we just did what we felt, You know, I think it's a very honest record, and I think with any music that I've ever been involved with, I've always felt that, you know, the people that I've been working with are doing what they are.
After being in a band for so long with these guys and being on hiatus, how do you guys feel as a group for the new album? Does it have that old feeling still to you guys, or is this something you guys had to really work on to get that feeling back, or is it something new completely?
I think it is just kind of like where we are now. Musically, we work like we always have. A lot of times, you know, the way it always worked is it would start out with Dan and Brian, you know, and then they would, you know, go back and forth and work out parts, and, you know, then they would hand them over to Devon, and Devon would come up with stuff, or Devon would bring a song in, and then we'd come up with our quirks and our thing. You know, sometimes, you know, there would be things where Devon or Dan would have a programmed drum machine part to give me an idea of what they want. And sometimes I would, you know, keep it and play it a certain way with my flavor. And then there would be other things where I just like, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I hear this, you know, and, you know, and, you know, same thing too, like the old days, Ward would come in with that, with that riff that the other guys wouldn't think of, and it would base like a very unique song. You know, the Spiral Tower riff off Social Grace was Ward's riff, and there are riffs like that on this album that are that. And you know, so I could say, yeah, that old feeling and that old vibe was there on how we worked, but we had to make it for now. You know, there was some crazy stuff, like where Dan and Brian would get together earlier in the week. They would record the part. They would show it to Ward and I 2 days before practice. We'd learn it. We'd try to get a good take of it. We'd record it with them, then listen to it, and then come back the next week. Okay, can do better. Then, you know, and it went back and forth like that. And there was also some other crazy stuff, like the tour that we did 2 years ago. There was a groove that Devon didn't really care for, and he didn't really have an idea for what he was going to do vocally. And we were having a conversation in Berlin after sound check, and I go, what is it that bugs you about that song? He goes, oh, it's not that it's bad, you know, I just, you know, it's just this. And then this idea of how to play the drum beat came in my head, but there was no time to go behind the kit because we had to go to dinner, and they were going to open the doors of the club. I go, don't forget this beat, try to play it at soundcheck. Well, 2 weeks go by. Every day I'd wake up, try to remember this beat and how to approach the song. And then we finish the tour. I go home. I get behind the kit. I come up with the part. I tell the guys, go, hey, I want to re-record the song. I have something. Then we send it back to Devon, and this was like weeks after the tour. And then he goes, I got something. And then it started the whole process over where we were changing things, and it ended up being probably like one of the best songs on the record.
Do you guys feel like it's another Psychotic Waltz album? And how does it feel after so much time has gone by?
Yes, it feels like a Psychotic record, and it feels amazing to be done. You know, it took a long time, like I said, and sometimes it felt like it was never going to be done, but it now that it's all done and we hear it back, and you know, the people that we got to work with to record the album, who tracked the drums and guitars and bass, was Ulrich Wild, and he did a fantastic job, and we did it at Rare Field Studios here in San Diego in North Park. And then Devon did all his vocals himself at Studio D in Austria. And there were actually some guitar parts that we kept from pre-production that were done at Dan and Brian's little home studio that they call Rock and Roll Studio. Get it? You know, because Dan Rock's last name's Rock, and Brian McAlpin is in a wheelchair, and he's always rolling. So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty brilliant too, you know. And so it and the icing on the cake is that we got to have Jens Bogren mix it and master it, and so I feel this is like the best sounding album we've ever had. We're just ecstatic about it. So that feeling is back. We're very pumped, very excited, very proud, and very, very stoked by the positive response.
To get away from Psychotic a little bit, you were on a metal radio show here in San Diego on the rock station called Another State of Mind with Jack.
Yes.
And you played mostly underground stuff, stuff like Creator, Morbid Angel, also local bands, like Cattle Decapitation before they were what they are now, Disgorge and stuff like that. And how important was it for you to expose people in San Diego to the underground metal scene?
It was really important. Well, for one, when I took over Blue Meannie Records, when I ended up owning the store, I basically only knew rock, hard rock, and metal. That's all I knew. And so I go, okay, well, I'm just going to, specialize in this and just, really carry a lot of classic rock, a lot of hard rock, a lot of metal and punk, stuff that I dug as a kid. And when I had the chance to do that radio show, it was right after metal died off because of the grunge thing, but yet there was a life after death. It's like it became a zombie you couldn't kill, and it was coming back for you. And there was all these great underground releases that, mainstream media, which was, there was no internet really. People were starting to get emails. But there wasn't like it is now to be exposed to music. The only way that you got exposed to music was going into a record store, hearing what they were playing, on their stereo, or talking to the people that worked at the record store, or going to shows.
Mm-hmm.
Which the internet has kind of fucked that all up. As great as the internet is, that has brought people closer together, it's also brought people further apart. It's harder to get people to go to shows. It's harder for people to be more outgoing. So it was really important that I remember like Century Media, Metal Blade, Relapse, Necropolis, yeah. Because actually, you were the one who brought that to my attention. You're like, all this underground black metal stuff's being distributed through these guys, and they're doing mail order. So, I reached out to a bunch of these labels and started selling it in the store. So, when we did the show, we played some classic metal and stuff like that, but there was just this boom of all these great bands, that are now, big bands. For example, like Arch Enemy was a very underground band, and I was just in awe of them even before, they had female vocalists. Mm-hmm. They were just a great band, and they kept putting out great releases.
Who did an in-store signing at Blue Meannie?
Yes, they
did.
Had
a couple signings there.
Yeah, we had Cannibal Corpse twice.
Yeah.
In Flames.
Hyrax.
That's right.
Yeah.
Exodus.
Rip.
That was before
right.
you. That was before you, though. Before you were working for me. Yeah.
Nile.
Cattle Decapitation.
Yeah. That was the vegan barbecue.
Yeah. As They Lay Dying.
Yes.
Yeah, there were so many of them. Agent Steel? They did a performance.
Agent Steel played live in the store when they reunited.
Mm-hmm. That was incredible.
That was awesome.
Yeah.
Hearing Masters of Metal, being played right in the middle of your store was like, oh, this is just incredible.
That was insane. On ASLM, do you remember?
Oh, this is gonna be good. There's a lot that I want to forget, no, and there's a lot that I remember.
Do you remember the Tom Warrior interview?
The which interview?
Tom G. Warrior from Celtic Frost.
Oh, that was. Well, you know what happened with that is Jack was working late night on Rock 105, and he called a week and a day early on a Saturday. And luckily Jack was there, and he answered the phone. He goes, no, the show's on Sunday nights, and it's next week. So he calls back, and, I'm stoked to be talking to him. And actually, we got a copy of his book, Are You Morbid? I read it all the way through, so I was familiar with it. And unfortunately, he was being a little difficult, and there was something that was said, and the mics were still on. And I think he heard it. I don't know, but we like, get off the air right now, So that was one that went kind of bad, and I feel bad about that. And that's why you shouldn't get too drunk on the air.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty funny.
Or playing live Abbott.
I think Abbott is hilarious. Like, he should have his own reality TV show.
He should. He's pretty funny.
I saw some interview with him, and I couldn't stop laughing. But one of my favorite things is when he's playing the festival and he's doing the run like he did in the Immortal video.
The crab walk?
Yeah, and he's just like running, and then he eats it, and he gets up, and everyone's like cheering, and it doesn't even matter.
He pulls it off. So, as for Psychotic Waltz, what are the band's plans after? I know I asked you that earlier, but for after this release, is it start booking some dates, some kind of publicity tour? Or what do you got going?
Well, they're currently working on that right now, like our booking agent is, so there's definitely going to be some dates. I don't have anything that I can announce now, and we definitely want to go out there and play some new songs and play some old songs and have a good time. I love playing live. That's like my favorite thing to do. So there is going to be something, but unfortunately I don't have anything that I can announce right now.
Where'd you guys just play this last year?
Well, October we did a week's worth of dates, and that was right after we did the Prog Power USA. We also played Prog Power Europe, so we based a string of dates around that. And Prog Power Europe was in Holland, and we did some shows in Germany, and we actually played 2 brand new songs. And we actually played one new song at Prog Power. We opened up with it. It was called Pull the String. And we opened with that new song in Europe. And basically, we used that to tell everybody, hey, we actually really did finish a record. It's done. We're, no excuses, no nothing. It's in the can. It's getting mixed as we speak. It's coming out in February. We had a release date, to tell people. And then, of course, later on, the internet reconfirms that release date. So,
if you're going to do any shows in the United States, I know of an event called the Metal Swap Meet that here in San Diego that you might want to consider playing.
I would be honored to play the Metal Swap Meet. You definitely have to talk to 4 other people, and I think that would be a really, really cool thing. I played the one with
You
Cage.
did with Cage, yeah.
Yeah, and actually, Nukem played the after party. That was a lot of fun. The after party. It was like playing like a house party. And that was at the Tower
Bar, yeah, which is just down the street here.
And that was my first time going there, and I remember
as small as it gets.
Oh, and it was like packed to the gills, and I remember like as soon as we kicked in, the whole front is just like the whole area is one big pit, and I see someone like take a Pabst Blue Ribbon, shake it up, it shoots up in the air, gets up on the bar, jumps off the bar, dives into the pit, and I was like, "This is amazing! We should do this every month." And it was a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that place is incredible.
What about with Nukem? You guys have played with Megadeth, Scorpions.
Yeah. Nukem has had a great run of playing with pretty much anytime a thrash band has come to San Diego, we've usually been the band that has opened for them, and we're very, very happy about that. It's a fun band to play in, and definitely when you hear the sound of that band, there is no doubt that it is a thrash metal band.
Yeah, there's something to be said about something being so straightforward like that. I don't want to say, Psychotic Waltz when you throw somebody into prog, that's kind of like where you throw bands that you can't categorize at all. But there's something to be said about a thrash band. I mean, it's like unmistakable.
Yeah.
Like Psychotic, I don't know. You know what I mean with prog? You can't. That's kind of where you throw bands that don't really categorize.
Yeah, a little bit more experimental.
Yeah, and I could see us being experimental. But speaking of the prog thing, when we played Prog Power, that day, we were actually the heaviest sounding band, because a lot of the prog stuff, was this amazing musicianship and strong song structures. A lot of it was really cool, but none of it was like very heavy,
right?
Except for when Demons and Wizards went on the next night, and that was pretty heavy.
That's more of the power than the
more
prog.
of the power metal than but the day that we played, there was like a lot of prog bands that and I watched a little bit of everybody, and I was like, wow, these guys are all great. But we definitely came off as a heavier band. They put us in the prog category, but if you listen to music, we're not like really all over the place. I think what puts us in that category is the big emphasis on melody, and we're very musical.
Well, I think before you guys were a little bit more ahead of the time, where you maybe couldn't categorize you guys so much. Maybe that's where
I can see that too.
Yeah, that's kind of like that's the bin you put. We don't know what that's called. You throw them in there.
Yeah. Well, we got a lot of that in the early days. When labels would hear us like, we don't know how to categorize these guys. What are they?
Yeah. That's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and what's funny, it brings back a memory, is like when we used to play Hollywood back in the late 80s, early 90s, and we'd go do shows up there, and we'd go up there a couple weeks before the show and pass out flyers on the strip. The one question that we always got asked, are you glam or are you thrash? That was like the only two styles of like hard rock or metal in the LA area, and we're like, well, we're just what we are. We didn't even know what to categorize ourselves.
Yeah,
so
especially in those times.
We just said, no, we're a metal band.
Well, that's what I think. I would still consider you guys as
a metal band. Yeah.
And you, back in the day, you toured with like death metal bands, and like didn't you tour with Death?
Yeah, we did. We did some shows with Death.
Yes.
In Europe.
So you toured with it wasn't back in the day. You weren't touring with just bands that sounded like you.
No, we didn't. And a matter of fact, the very first tour we did, we played a festival in East Berlin, and it was us, Paradise Lost, Morgoth, Entombed, Morbid Angel, and Gwar headlined.
Wow, man. That's quite a lineup.
Yeah, and I was in awe of Morbid Angel because I never saw a drummer play like that when I saw Pete Sandoval, and that was pretty amazing.
He's an innovator.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed watching him play.
You've been in all these bands. You worked at Blue Meannie before you owned it. For many years. You did the metal radio show here in San Diego. You've promoted shows in San Diego. So you've always, as long as I've known you, had a very big part of the scene here in San Diego. And I just want to speak for everybody and say that I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. No, I appreciate that. Metal has been in my blood from day one, and I love this style of music, regardless of the label, if it's prog, thrash, whatever. I'm a fan of this music, and that part of my history is something that I've always cherished. That I got to dabble in a little bit of everything, because we were doing shows that were Blue Meannie Records Presents, where we would rent out brick by brick, and
then you guys put a San Diego Metal Fest and combined the show, a couple tours.
We did a thing called San Diego Metal, where it was at Soma, and it was Cattle Decapitation that headlined it, and there was Disgorge, it was Warface, and it was Teabag. Mm-hmm. So there was stuff like that we did, but there was a couple shows where Blue Meannie Presents, the show that had Hate Eternal and Arch Enemy, where we did the in-store with them. Mm-hmm. That was my show. I put that show on. I put the money up for that show back then. I rented out the venue. I paid the promoter. Set up the in-store. Yeah. It was us, and me and Hendo that did that. We were partners on that, and we also did Creator at Brick by Brick one time like that, and there was an in-store. I think that was Creator and
Nile?
No, Polish death metal band. Vader.
Was it Vader?
And that's when Doc was still alive.
And they did the in-store.
They did the in-store, and they were amazing.
They smoked out the back room, remember, with all the cigarettes?
Oh yeah. So, that was, we were part of that, and that was really cool. Also, Jack and I did the one show at Brick where it was Morbid Angel and Deicide. That was mine and his show. Morbid Angel and Deicide show, and that was a show that I partnered with Hendo, but Hendo said, hey, okay, with this one, let's say Jack and Norm Presents. Let's call it that. Another State of Mind Presents. And that was an incredible show.
You got Zyklon play too, right?
That's right. How could I forget that? Yeah, because that was an incredible album, that first Zyklon.
Yeah.
I think it was called World of Worms.
Yeah, that Morbid Angel Deicide show at Brick, you'll never see a show like that again at Brick. A lineup like that?
Yes.
I think the days where there was 2 or 3 kind of headlining bands are gone.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, is that was the original lineup of Deicide, and that was also Morbid Angel.
Hoffman Brothers were still...
we're still playing, and, it was also Morbid Angel with Pete the Feet Sandoval still playing drums for them.
Before the David Vincent reunion.
Yeah, and Eric Rutan was playing guitar.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
so...
Good show.
That was an amazing show.
Berserker, did they play at that time?
They were actually, now I'm remembering, it was Berserker, Zyklon B, and then Deicide, then Morbid Angel. That was the show. It was a 4-band bill. Good memory there, Vince.
Yeah. I forgot about Berserker.
Yeah, I did too.
They
wore the mask
crazy
and everything.
drums.
Yeah,
Remember how fast that guy played?
Yeah, that was gnarly. it was like almost too fast.
Yeah.
It was just like, whoa.
Yeah, it sounded like
Everyone's it's sped up, but these days like
sounded like a CD skipping or something.
It was so quick.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who else was on that? Going back to the arch enemy Hate Eternal show, you know who else was on that? Was I'm always spacing. Origin.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to that show.
Origin opened the show on that, and I remember, because that was Derek Roddy playing drums, and they did the in-store, and I drove them to the in-store, and I remember it was really cool to pick Derek Roddy's brain, and John Longstrength too, talking to him.
With Origin, yeah.
I remember seeing in that point of time, seeing those two drummers, like, wow, the bar has been raised, So,
yeah, I mean, they're all kind of building off of Pete Sandoval, right?
yeah. He kind of started it, and it just kept getting crazier and crazier.
Yeah. Who was probably influenced by Lombardo?
Yes.
I would say so.
Well, the first time I saw Morbid Angel was in Europe, and I talked a little bit about how Psychotic Waltz played with them in East Berlin. And the first time we played with them on that same tour was at Dynamo Festival. And I hadn't heard of them. And I remember seeing this huge double bass Ludwig drum kit with a giant Gibraltar rack cage. He had stuff over him with a mounted upside down cross and gleaming chrome right over his drums in between his cymbals. And I remember like going up to him, and I'm seeing him warm up, and I'm like, hey, is this your kit or is this a rental kit? Because my first tour of Europe, I was very heartbroken with all the rental kits that I got, because they were just complete beat up turds. And me being a gear snob, I had a really nice drum set back home. And after that tour, of course, I pulled the whole rockstar move. We have to ship my own drums over. I'm not playing with it. And little did I know that there was great rental companies that had backline. I wish I would have found that out sooner. And I remember grabbing my friend Hopper, who financed the first Psychotic Waltz record, and I go, hey man, you gotta check this band out, and I see David Vincent walking around, all buff with a big cod piece on his bass. They're not talking to anybody. It almost looks like, it almost seemed like Death Clock, it was like comical. And then Richard Brunel was playing guitar with them at that time, and he's like walking in circles like this, warming up, and just in
the zone.
The zone. And there's this really nice looking girl following him, walking 2 feet behind him, holding his water, and then he'd stop and she'd hand him the water. I was like, these guys got it going on, man, and then I go get Hopper. I go, hey man, I think this band's gnarlier than Slayer. And of course they were on the tour for Blessed Are the Sick, and I was hooked, so I instantly had to go out and get the album.
They kind of did one up Slayer
on that. They definitely took a page out of the Slayer book, and kind of spawned the modern death metal thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Vince, did you have any gear questions for Norm?
Yeah. You said you use Sabian cymbals, and you are endorsed
by Aquarian Drumheads. I actually, these days, the reason why I'm playing all Sabian is my last batch of cymbals that I had that were great, I cracked a bunch of them, and that's the problem being a drummer. You always crack cymbals, and it gets so expensive, you don't have enough money to buy like all of them. Well, as you guys know, I work for Guitar Center, so I won 2 contests in a row, the Sabian cymbal contest for sales guys. So I won both contests, and I got outfitted with a ton of Sabian cymbals, and I'm really happy with them, and that's what I recorded the new album with. But funny that you asked that. 3 weeks before we were ready to track the album, I'm practicing my balls off, hitting hard, getting pumped, get in the zone, like, yeah, I'm going to nail this song. I'm going to nail it, and I'm really like laying into it, and I'm having a good time, and I'm just, visualizing me being in that recording booth. And all of a sudden, I crack all my cymbals that one, like except for like my hi-hats, my splash,
And the ride.
and my ride. And my big crash over here, which is usually the one that I crack because I crash ride on that, but the 2 crashes up here and the 2 Chinas are splattered. So luckily, we had an album budget and the band was able to buy me all new cymbals. So yes.
Good, it's good timing on that.
Oh yeah.
Yes, if you're hearing us, Sabian.
No. But what I'm saying is what you should heed my advice. I didn't buy since I won the cymbals, I couldn't buy the pro coverage, the extended warranty in case you crack the cymbal. You're able to bring it back to Guitar Center and get a
it is a good
cymbal.
deal with the cymbals there.
So get the pro coverage. If I would have had pro coverage on that, I would have been covered. But I did get the pro coverage on the new cymbals that I bought from my work, thanks to my band paying for it. So.
When recording, how'd you guys do the drums? Was it sampled from your own drum set? You guys retrigger stuff?
No, we I have nice drums and nice snares, and we did it the old school way. Those what you're hearing is my drum sound. We didn't trigger anything. Ulrich is an incredible recording engineer, and he had mics all over that drum set, and it was also the first time that we got to have the kind of time to really dial in the drum sound. That the first day of me being in the studio, I didn't even track drums. We just spent a whole day tweaking the drums, and whether he was tweaking something on the board or moving a microphone or me working on the tuning. We spent a lot of time getting the drum sound, and we spent a lot of time with the performance of it. And a matter of fact, Ward and I did it the same way that we did it back in the day, where we would have a scratch rhythm guitar to a click track, and him and I would track together. So if I got a good take, I would keep it. If he got a good take, he would keep it, or he would punch in if there's something he needed to fix, or if we wanted to combine takes, it's a lot easier to do that too. But what you're hearing is what went down pretty much. And it's my drum tone and my tuning, and I'm very, very happy about that. And I was also worried about when it was going to get mixed, that that sometimes happens where they sound replace everything, and they didn't. They kept it very organic. That's the way my drums sound. That's the way I sound when I'm hitting a snare or smacking a cymbal, or the way I stomp on a pedal.
All right. Thank you all for hanging out with us and watching this video, and thank you very much, Norm, for doing this.
Thank you.
Brian, Vince, thank you so much for having me on. This was fun.
No, I appreciate it, man. We've been friends for a long time, so this is really cool. Check out Psychotic Waltz' new album called The God-Shaped Void. It comes out February 14th, 2020 on Inside Out Music. Also go listen to the new song Devils and Angels. The video is out now.
You guys have any other videos coming out?
There's going to be 2 more videos out coming out here. I think there's one coming out in December, and then the other one's coming out right before the release.
Cool.
I think that's what the schedule is.
Cool. Looking forward to that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And be sure you leave a comment out in the video. If anything's interesting, I'll ask Norm, like, hey, get in there and reply to this. And
how can you find Psychotic Waltz online?
Well, we have a Facebook and an Instagram page. And soon there's going to be a YouTube channel that they're working on right now.
Cool.
So, yeah.
And the old album's getting re-released.
Yes, the old albums are getting re-released. You can still find, some of the Metal Blade issued box sets that, a few years back, Metal Blade did 2 different box sets. And those are soon, those will be out of print soon, but I'm sure there's some still floating around. But yes, the back catalog is getting reissued on Inside Out.
Vinyl?
I think so. I think they're going to do vinyl too. There's vinyl definitely coming out with the new album.
They're taking pre-orders.
Yeah, we're taking pre-orders right now, and with the there's also a digipack, and I believe there's like a package too where there's a double vinyl, a digipack, and a T-shirt.
Cool.
All right, that's what I'm getting.
Cool.
All right, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we'll talk to you next time. See you later.